Welcome back, everybody. Sorry it's so late. I decided that I'm not gonna do the Harry Potter series in a live stream. Those I'm actually gonna just save for regular recorded videos. But I was asked to do a book read in a live stream, so I am reading something called The Phantom Toll Booth. Hi Kat, how are you? Hold on, I need a blanket or something. It is a little chilly in here. Alright. Good to know. Aw, thanks. Hope you have a great night. Chapter 1, Milo. There was once a boy named Milo who didn't know what to do with himself. Not just sometimes, but always. Yeah. Kind of fitting. When he was in school, he longed to be out, and when he was out, he longed to be in. On the way, he thought about coming home, and coming home, he always thought about going. Wherever he was, he wished he was somewhere else, and when he got there, he wondered why he'd bothered. Nothing really interested him, at least of all the things that should have. Hi, Skylar, how are you? It seems to me that almost everything is a waste of time, he remarked one day, as he walked dejectedly home from school. I can't see the point in learning to solve useless problems, or subtracting turnips from turnips, or knowing where Ethiopia is, or how to spell February. I don't know what you're saying, Kat. And since no one bothered to explain otherwise, he regarded the process of seeking knowledge as the greatest waste of time at all. See, there's a picture of him. I can't tell if he's walking in the rain or if that's just supposed to be the background. As he and his unhappy thoughts hurried along, for while he was never anxious to be where he was going, he liked to get there as quickly as possible. It seemed a great wonder that the world, which was so large, could sometimes feel so small and empty. And worst of all, he continued sadly, there's nothing for me to do, nowhere I'd care to go, and hardly anything worth seeing. He punctuated this last thought with such a deep sigh that a house sparrow singing nearby stopped and rushed home to be with his family. Without stopping or looking up, Milo dashed past the buildings and busy shops that lined the street, and in a few minutes reached home. Dashed through the lobby, hopped onto the elevator, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And off again. Opened the apartment door, rushed into his room, flopped dejectedly into a chair, and grumbled softly, another long afternoon. I'm back, but I'm talking to silence. I might disappear again. Okay. Thanks for letting me know. He looked glumly at all the things he owned. The books that were too much trouble to read, the tools he'd never learned to use, the small electric automobile he hadn't driven in months, or was it years, and the hundreds of other games and toys and bats and balls and bits and pieces scattered around him. And then, to one side of the room, just next to the phonograph, he noticed something he certainly had never seen before. Who could possibly have left such an enormous package and such a strange one? For a while it was not quite square, it was definitely not round, and for its size it was larger than almost any other big package of smaller dimensions he had ever seen. That was one of the most confusing sentences I think I've ever read. Attached to one side was a bright blue envelope which said simply, "For Milo, who has plenty of time." Of course, if you ever gotten a surprise package, you could imagine how puzzled and excited I actually kind of miss going to school. How puzzled and excited Milo was, and if you'd never gotten one, pay close attention because someday you might. "I don't think it's my birthday," he puzzled, "and Christmas must be months away, and I haven't been outstandingly good or even good at all." He had to admit this even to himself. "Most probably I wouldn't like it anyway. But since I don't know where it came from, I can't possibly send it back." He thought about it for quite a while and then opened the envelope, but just to be polite. "One genuine turnpike tool booth," it stated. And then it went on. "Easily assembled at home and for use by those who have never traveled in lands beyond." "Beyond what?" thought Milo as he continued to read. "This package contains the following items. 1 genuine turnpike tool booth to be erected according to directions. 3 precautionary signs to be used in a precautionary fashion. Assorted coins for use in paying tolls. 1 map, up to date and carefully drawn by master cartographers, depicting natural and man-made features. 1 book of rules and traffic regulations which may not be bent or broken." And in smaller letters at the bottom it concluded, "Results are not guaranteed, but if not perfectly satisfied, your wasted time will be refunded." There's a picture of Milo with a box. Following the instructions which told him to cut here, lift there, and fold back all around, he soon had the tool booth unpacked and set up on its stand. He fitted the windows in place and attached the roof, which extended out on both sides, and fastened on the coin box. It was very much like the tool booths he had seen many times on family trips, except of course it was much smaller and purple. "What a strange present," he thought to himself. "The least they could have done was send a highway with it, for it's terribly impractical without one." But since at the time there was nothing else he wanted to play with, he set up the 3 signs. And the hockey cards I got from my sister's friend. Oh, that's cool. That must be exciting. "Slow down approaching tool booth. Please have your fare ready. Have your destination in mind." And slowly unfolded the map. As the announcement stated, it was a beautiful map in many colors, showing principal roads, rivers and seas, towns and cities, mountains and rivers, intersections and detours, and sites of outstanding interest, both beautiful and historic. Neat. The only trouble was that Milo had never heard of any of the places it indicated, and even the name sounded most peculiar. I don't think there really is such a country," he concluded, after studying it carefully. "Well, it doesn't matter anyway." And he closed his eyes and poked a finger at the map. Dictionopolis, read Milo carefully when he saw what his finger had chosen. Oh, well, I might as well go there as anywhere. He walked across the room, dusted the car off carefully, then taking the map and rulebook with him, he hopped in and, for lack of anything better to do, drove slowly up to the tool booth. As he deposited the coin and rolled past, he remarked wistfully, "I do hope this is an interesting game. Otherwise, the afternoon will be so terribly dull." Hold on. Get away, I'm back. Chapter 2, Beyond Expectations. Mark Dark Secret. Great rhyming, cat. Suddenly he found himself speeding along an unfamiliar country highway. As he looked back over his shoulder, neither the tool booth nor his room nor even the house was anywhere in sight. I can do a 9th grade English. What had started as make-believe was now very real. What a strange thing to have happened. Sure, he thought, just as he might be thinking right now. This game is much more serious than I thought, for here I am riding on a road I'd never seen, going to a place I've never heard of, and all because of a tool booth which came from nowhere. I'm certainly glad this is a nice day for a trip, he concluded. He concluded hopefully, for at the moment this was the one thing he definitely knew. The sun sparkled, the sky was clear, and all the colors he saw seemed to be richer and brighter than he could ever remember. The flowers shone as if they'd been cleaned and polished, and the tall trees that lined the roads shimmered in a silvery green. "Welcome to Expectations," said a carefully lettered sign on a small house on the side of the road. "Information, predictions, and advice cheerfully offered. Park here and blow horn." With the first sound from the horn, a little man in a long coat came rushing from the house, speaking as fast as he could and repeating everything several times. My, welcome, 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 welcome to the land of expectations, to the land of expectations, to the land of expectations. We don't get many travelers these days. We certainly don't get many travelers these days. Now what can I do for you? I'm the weatherman. Is this the right road for Dictionopolis? Asked Milo, a little blown over by the effusive greeting. Well now, he began again. I don't know of any wrong road to Dictionopolis, so if this road goes to Dictionopolis at all, it must be the right road, and if it doesn't, it must be the right road to somewhere else. Nice emojis. Because there's no wrong roads to anywhere. Do you think it will rain? I thought you were the weatherman, said Milo, very confused. Oh no, said the little man. I'm the weather, W-H-E-T-H-E-R, man, not the weather, W-E-A-T-H-E-R, man. For after all, it's more important to know whether there will be weather than what the weather will be. It's not supposed to rain here. And with that, he released a dozen balloons that sailed off into the sky. Must see which way the wind is blowing, he said. chuckling over his little joke and watching them disappear in all directions. "What kind of place is Expectations?" inquired Milo, unable to see the humor and feeling very doubtful of the little man's sanity. Good question, he exclaimed. "Expectations is a place you must always go to before you get to where you're going. It was like in the... It was like 63 during the day today, but I think it's like down in the 40s tonight. Of course, some people never go beyond expectations, but my job is to hurry them along whether they like it or not. Now, what else can I do for you?" And before Milo could reply, he rushed into the house and reappeared a moment later with a new coat and an umbrella. "I think I can find my own way," said Milo, not at all sure that he could. But since he didn't understand the little man at all, he decided that he might as well move on, at least until he met someone whose sentences didn't always sound as if they would make as much sense backwards as forwards. "Splendid, splendid, splendid!" exclaimed the weatherman. "Whether or not you find your own way, you're bound to find some way. If you happen to find my way, please return it as it was lost years ago. I imagine by now it's quite rusty." Sounds like Vermont. You did say it was going to rain, didn't you?" And with that, he opened the umbrella and looked up nervously. "I'm glad you made your own decision. I do so hate to make up my mind about anything, whether it's good or bad, up or down, in or out, rain or shine. Except everything, I always say, and the unexpected never happens. Expect everything, I always say, and the unexpected never happens. Now please drive carefully. Goodbye, 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 good..." His last goodbye was drowned out by an enormous clap of thunder. And as Milo drove down the road in the bright sunshine, he could see the weatherman standing in the middle of a fierce cloudburst that seemed to be raining only on him. The road dipped now into a broad green valley and stretched towards the horizon. The little car bounced along with very little effort, and Milo had hardly to touch the accelerator to go as fast as he wanted, and he was glad to be on his way again. "It's all very well to spend time in Expectations," he thought, "but talking to that strange man all day would certainly get me nowhere. He's the most peculiar person I've ever met," continued Milo, unaware of how many peculiar people he would shortly encounter. As he drove along the peaceful highway, he soon fell to daydreaming and paid less and less attention to where he was going. In a short time, he wasn't paying any attention at all, and that is why, at the fork in the road, when the sign pointed to the left, Milo went to the right. If the expected is unexpected, does that make the unexpected the expected? If the expected is unexpected. Yes? I don't know. That is some deep shit. Right along a route which looked suspiciously like the wrong way. Things began to change as soon as he left the main highway. The sky became quite gray, and along with it, the whole countryside seemed to lose its color, and assume the same monotone. Everything was quiet, and even the air hung heavily. The birds sang only gray songs, and the road wound back and forth in an endless series of climbing curves. Mile after mile after mile after mile he drove, and now gradually the car went slower and slower until it was hardly moving at all. "It looks as though I'm getting nowhere," yawned Milo, becoming very drowsy and dull. I hope I haven't taken a wrong turn. Mile after mile after mile after mile, and everything became grayer and more monotonous. Finally, the car just stopped altogether, and hard as he tried, it wouldn't budge another inch. I wonder where I am, said Milo in a very worried tone. You're in the doldrums, wailed a voice very slowly that sounded far away. He looked around quickly to see who had spoken. No one was there, and it was as quiet and still as one could imagine. Yes, the doldrums, yawned another voice, but still he saw no one. What are the doldrums? He cried loudly, and tried very hard to see who would answer this time. The doldrums, my young friend, are where nothing ever happens and nothing ever changes. All right, Cat. This time the voice came from so close that Milo jumped in surprise, for sitting on his right shoulder, so lightly he hardly noticed, was a small creature exactly the color of his shirt. Allow me to introduce all of us, the creature went on. We are the lethargians at your service. Milo looked around and for the first time noticed dozens of them, sitting on the car, sitting in the road, and lying all over the trees and bushes. They were very difficult to see because whatever they happened to be sitting on or near was exactly the color they happened to be. Each one looked very much like the other except for the color, of course, and some looked even more like each other than they did like themselves. I'm very pleased to meet you, said Milo, not sure whether or not he was pleased at all. I think I'm lost. Can you help me, please? Don't think, said one sitting on his shoe, for the one sitting on his shoulder had fallen asleep. It's against the law. And he yawned and fell asleep too. No one's allowed to think in the doldrums, continued a third, beginning to doze off. And as each one spoke, he fell off to sleep, and another picked up the conversation, with hardly any interruptions. Don't you have a rule book? It's Local Ordinance 175389-J. Milo quickly pulled the rule book from his pocket, opened to the page, and read Ordinance 175389-J. It shall be unlawful, illegal, and unethical to think of thinking, surmise, presume, reason, meditate, or speculate while in the doldrums. Anyone breaking this law shall be severely punished. That's a ridiculous law, said Milo quite indignantly. Everybody thinks. We don't, shouted the lethargians all at once. And most of the time you don't, said the yellow one sitting in the daffodil. That's why you're here. You weren't thinking. You weren't paying attention either. People who don't pay attention often get stuck in the doldrums. And with that, he toppled out of the flower and fell snoring into the grass. Milo couldn't help laughing at the little creature's strange behavior, even though he knew it might be rude. Stop that at once, ordered the plaid one, clinging to his stocking. Laughing against the law. Don't you have a rule book? It's in Local Ordinance 574381-W. Hi, Cat. Opening the book again, Milo found Ordinance 574381-W. In the doldrums, laughter is frowned upon and smiling is permitted only on alternate Thursdays. Violators shall be dealt with most harshly. Well, if you can't laugh or think, what can you do? Asked Milo. Anything as long as it's nothing, and everything as long as it isn't anything, explained the other. There's a lot to do and we have a very busy schedule. At 8 o'clock we get up and then we spend from 8 to 9 daydreaming. From 9 to 9:30 we take our early mid-morning nap. From 9:30 to 10:30 we dawdle and delay. Same. From 10:30 to 11:30, we take our early morning nap. From 11:30 to... Hi, party man. How are you? What did I just drop? That was weird. From 11:30 to noon, we bide our time and then eat lunch. Same. From 1 o'clock to 2, we linger and loiter. From 2 to 2:30, we take our early afternoon nap. From 2:30 to 3:30, we put off for tomorrow what we could have done today. From 3:30 to 4, we take our early afternoon nap. From 4 to 5, we loaf and lounge until dinner. From 6 to 7, we dilly-dally. From 7 to 8, we take our early evening nap, and then for an hour before we go to bed at 9, we waste time. As you can see, that leaves almost no time for brooding, lagging, plotting, or procrastinating. And if we stop to think or laugh, we'll never get nothing done. You mean you'd never get anything done, corrected Milo. We don't want to get anything done, snapped another angrily. We want to get nothing done, and we can do that without your help. It's a book called The Phantom Tool Booth. You see, continued another in a more quiet tone, it's really quite strenuous doing nothing all day. So once a week we take a holiday and go nowhere, which was just where we were going when you came along. Would you care to join us? I might as well, thought Milo. That's where I seem to be going anyway. Tell me, he yawned, for he felt ready for a nap now himself. Does everyone here do nothing? Everyone but the terrible watchdog, said the two of them, shouting in chorus. He's always sniffling around to see that nobody wastes time. And most unpleasant character. The watchdog, said Milo quizzically. The watchdog, shouted another, fainting from fright, for racing down the road, barking furiously and kicking up a great cloud of dust, was the very dog of whom they had been speaking. Run! Wake up! Run! Here he comes, the watchdog! Same, cat. Same. Great shouts filled the air as the Lothargians scattered in all directions and soon disappeared entirely. Ruff, 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 ruff! Exclaimed the watchdog as he dashed up to the car, loudly puffing and panting. Milo's eyes opened wide, for there in front of him was a large dog with a perfectly normal head, 4 feet, and a tail, and the body of a loudly ticking alarm clock. What are you doing here? Growled the watchdog. Ow, as I just whacked myself in the face with the... Hold on, my hand's gonna be in the way. There we go. Growled the watchdog. Just killing time, replied Milo apologetically. You see, killing time, roared the dog so furiously that his alarm went off. Isn't that always how it is with Carson? He probably went to bed. It's bad enough wasting time without killing it. He shuddered at the thought. Why are you in the doldrums anyway? Don't you have anywhere to go? I was on my way to Dictionopolis when I got stuck here, explained Milo. Can you help me? Help you? You must help yourself, the dog replied, carefully winding himself with his left hind leg. I suppose you know why you got stuck. I guess I just wasn't thinking, said Milo. Precisely, shouted the dog as his alarm went off again. Now you know what you must do. I'm afraid I don't, admitted Milo, feeling quite stupid. Well, continued the watchdog impatiently, since you got here by not thinking, it seems reasonable to expect that in order to get out, you must start thinking. And with that, he hopped into the car. Do you mind if I get in? I love automobile rides. Milo began to think as hard as he could, which was very difficult since he wasn't used to it. He thought of birds that swim and fish that fly. He thought of yesterday's lunch and tomorrow's dinner. He thought of words that begin with J and numbers that end in 3, and as he thought, the wheels began to turn. "We're moving! We're moving!" he shouted happily. "Keep thinking," scolded the watchdog. The little car started to go faster and faster as Milo's brain whirled with activity, and down the road they went. In a few moments they were out of the doldrums and back on the main highway. All the colors had returned to their original brightness, and as they raced along the road, Milo continued to think of all sorts of things, of the many detours and wrong turns that were so easy to take, of how fine it was to be moving along, and most of all, how much could be accomplished with just a little thought. And the dog, his nose in the wind, just sat back, watchfully ticking. There's a picture of the watchdog. "You must excuse my gruff conduct," the watchdog said after they'd been driving for some time. "But you see, it's traditional for watchdogs to be ferocious." Milo was same. I do too. Except for those moments that I end up getting lost in thought, and then I'm not paying attention to the road until I have to step on the brakes, and then you're just like, I just spent 10 seconds just thinking about nothing. Yes, I love those books. I might have one. Hold on. I don't have the books, but I have this, The Ultimate Guide. It gives a brief history from each of the characters. Percy Jackson, birthday August 18th, place of birth New York, mother Sally Jackson, father Poseidon, favorite food anything blue and sweet, favorite drink Coke, favorite place summer cabin at Montauk, Long Island. I don't know how to pronounce that. Favorite form of transportation Pegasus, whose name is Blackjack. Best at sword fighting, worst at spelling. Friends, Grover Underwood, Annabeth Tyson, Mrs. O'Leary. Enemies, Coronos, Gabe Uglino, Mrs. Dodd. Percy Jackson is far from average, even if his grades often are. Well, technically, they're more like below average. His differences are not immediately obvious, but they become increasingly problematic once he reaches the age of 12. Strange things begin to happen to him. He is attacked by monsters and befriended by a satyr, and that's just the beginning. Once he goes to Camp Half-Blood, a whole new world opens for him. Being a half-blood is dangerous. It's scary. Most of the time it gets you killed in painful, nasty ways. If you recognize yourself in these pages, if you feel something stirring inside, you might be one of us. And once you know that, it's only a matter of time before they sense it too, and they'll come for you. Don't say I didn't warn you. And it has his stepdad. Hmm. 10 signs you might be a half-blood. 1. You have suspicions that at least one of your teachers may not be human. In itself, this proves nothing, as many teachers are some form of monster in disguise. Do watch out for teachers with an unnatural interest in torturing you, though. Number 2. You have been tested for and diagnosed with ADHD. I have ADHD. ADHD, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, doesn't mean you never pay attention. It could be that you have difficulty in filtering out the sights and sounds around you when your teacher drones on about something which doesn't interest you. So watching a dryad or a satyr chatting under the weeping willows outside the classroom window may grab your attention when your teacher would prefer you to be writing notes. This can result in shouting and punishment. Your energy level or hyperactivity may make it difficult for you to sit still through a whole class. You may also find that you have a tendency to do or say the first thing that comes into your mind. Young demigods frequently experience these symptoms, which show that they are superior fighting skills and reflexes, which can keep them alive while battling monsters. Number 3. You have been tested for and diagnosed with dyslexia. Dyslexia causes problems with reading and writing. You are just as clever as other kids, but your brain finds it difficult to process written information. Reading can feel like torture and words can seem to float off the page. In many cases, half-blood kids see things that ordinary kids just can't see. Their brains are hardwired to interpret ancient Greek, which is why they have problems with decoding modern languages. Number 4. Odd events have occurred which they cannot explain. These might be something not completely out of the ordinary, such as an adult behaving oddly, then denying later that they did anything unusual, or it can cover truly dramatic events such as a demon attacking your school bus or an unexplained explosion in a science lab. These also sound like you could be a witch or a wizard. Number 5. You often experience deja vu. Half-bloods frequently have a sense that they have been through an experience before, even though they know it's the first time it has happened. This is because they experience time differently from ordinary humans. So you may feel that time slows down, for example, if you are in danger of being attacked by a monster, or when tackling pages of math problems at school. Alternatively, time can seem to speed up, for example, when you're trying to evade a pack of hellhounds or when you're playing Capture the Flag. All these experiences point to the presence of immortal blood in your veins, and they relate to your destiny as a demigod. If you were at camp on Half-Blood Hill, they would be a sign that you should consult the oracle. Number 6. At times it seems unlikely that your father or mother is really your parent. Most human kids dream at some time or another that their parents may not be their real parents, but this might actually be true for half-bloods. Number 7. One or more of your friends doesn't seem quite normal. I'm that not normal friend. You may have detected the school satyr. Most schools have at least one who may befriend you. Look out for hair big enough to cover small goat horns and an appetite for more or less anything. A bleating laugh, desperate attempts to keep their legs covered at all times. Some satyrs pass for humans more easily than others, but there is always one clue or another to their real identity. Number 8. When you are alone, you have a strange sensation of being watched or followed, although no one is there. You may simply be a hypersensitive mortal, or you could be under surveillance by monsters. They have been reporting hiding in attics, basements, closets, and school restrooms, as well as anywhere there is thick concealing undergrowth. Number 9. Your dreams are different from those of your friends, and you seem to be able to control what happens in them, or you experience a particularly vivid, recurring dream. Number 10. You suffer from irrational fears or phobias, for example, being afraid of heights, water, the dark, or spiders. An irrational fear may be more rational than you think and can be connected to demigod status. Half-bloods may fear anything their Olympian parents hate, for example, the children of Hephaestus? I don't know. Oh, shit, what's his name? I don't remember. Are afraid of high places and have nightmares about falling. This comes from the god's childhood when he was thrown from Mount Olympus by Zeus. The children of Athena fear spiders, a direct result of the goddess's unpleasant run-in with Arachne, who Athena turned into a spider. Ugh, I wouldn't want to be turned into a spider. Ugh, I fucking hate spiders. Pegasi is the singular for, or plural for Pegasus. That's weird. If I was a half-blood, my dad would probably be Poseidon. Mostly because of how much I love water. But yeah, it's a cool book. I got it at an estate sale. When, like, I don't want to say old people, but when, like, someone closes their house or something and they go and try to sell it, but they just want to get rid of all their stuff, they can have people come and sell it for them, and they're called estate sales. It usually happens when either an old person dies or if they go to a nursing home. But anyway, I'm pretty sure the one person who's watching is Kat, because she's awesome and stays until I'm done streaming. But I've really been streaming for 43 minutes already. Holy shit. That was sour. When do you go back to school, Kat? And then I'll go back to my other book. Milo was so relieved at having escaped the doldrums that he answered the dog. He assured the dog that he bore him no ill will and in fact was very grateful for the assistance. "Splendid," shouted the watchdog. "I am very pleased. I am sure we'll be great friends from the rest of the trip. You may call me Talk." "That's a strange name for a dog who goes tick, 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 tick all day," said Milo. "Why didn't they call you—" "Don't say it," gasped the dog, and Milo could see a tear well up in his eye. "I didn't mean to hurt your feelings," said Milo, not meaning to hurt his feelings. "That's all right," said the dog, getting a hold of himself. "It's an old story and a sad one, but I can tell it to you now. When my brother was born, the first pup in the family, my parents were overjoyed and immediately named him Tick in expectation of the sons they were sure he'd make. On first winding him, they discovered to their horror that instead of going tick, 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 he went talk, 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 talk. They rushed to the Hall of Records to change the name, but too late. It had already been officially inscribed and nothing could be done. When I arrived, they were determined not to make the same mistake twice, and since it seemed logical that all their children would make the same sound, they named me Talk. Of course, you know the rest. My brother is called Tick because he goes talk, 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 and I'm called Talk because I go tick, 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 tick. And both of us are forever burdened with the wrong names. My parents were so overwrought that they gave up having any more children and devoted their lives to doing good work amongst the poor and hungry. But how did you become a watchdog? Interjected Milo, hoping to change the subject, as Talk was sobbing quite loudly now. That, he said, rubbing a paw to his eyes, is also traditional. My family have always been watchdogs, from father to son, almost since time began. You see, he continued, beginning to feel better. Once there was no time at all, and people found it very inconvenient. They never knew whether they were eating lunch or dinner, and they were always missing trains. So time was invented to help them keep track of the day and to get places where they should. When they began to count all the times that was available, what with 60 seconds in a minute and 60 minutes in an hour and 24 hours in a day and 365 days in a year, it seemed as if there was much more than could ever be used. If there's so much of it, it couldn't be very valuable, was the general opinion, and it soon fell into disrepute. People wasted it and gave it away, and then we were given the job of seeing that no one wastes time again, he said, sitting up proudly. It's hard work, but a noble calling, for you see, and now he was standing on the seat, one foot on the windshield, shouting with his arms outstretched. It's our most valuable possession, more precious than diamonds. It marches on, it and tide wait for no man, and at this point in the speech, the car hit a bump in the road, and the watchdog collapsed in a heap on the front seat with his alarm again ringing furiously. Are you all right? Shouted Milo. Oomph, grunted Talk. Sorry to get carried away, but I think you get the point. As they drove along, Talk continued to explain the importance of time, quoting the old philosophers and poets and illustrating each point with gestures that brought him perilously close to tumbling headlong from the speeding automobile. Before long, they saw in the distance the towers and flags of Dictionopolis sparkling in the sunlight, and in a few minutes they reached the great wall and stood at the gateway to the city. Arrgh! Roared the gateman, clearing his throat and snapping smartly to attention. This is Dictionopolis, a happy kingdom advantageously located at the foothills of confusion and caressed by gentle breezes from the sea of knowledge. Today, by royal proclamation, is market day. Have you come to buy or sell? I beg your pardon, said Milo. Buy or sell, repeated the gateman impatiently. Which is it? You must have come here for some reason. Well, Milo began. Come now, if you don't have a reason, you must at least have an explanation, or certainly an excuse, interrupted the gateman. Milo shook his head. Very serious, the gateman said, shaking his head also. You can't get in without a reason. He thought for a moment and then continued, Wait a minute. Maybe I have an old one you can use. He took a battered suitcase from the gatehouse and began rummaging busily through it, mumbling to himself. No, 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 that won't do. No. This is fine. He cried triumphantly, holding up a small medallion on a chain. He dusted it off and engraved on one side were the words, "Why not?" That's a good reason for almost anything. A bit used, perhaps, but still quite serviceable. And with that, he placed it around Milo's neck, pushed back the heavy iron gate, bowed low, and motioned them into the city. I wonder what the market would be like, thought Milo as they drove through the gate. But before there was time for an answer, they had driven into the immense square crowded with long lines of stalls heaped with merchandise and decorated in bright-colored bunting. Overhead, a large banner proclaimed, "Welcome to the Word Market." And from across the square, 5 very tall, thin gentlemen, dressed in silks and satin, plumed hats and buckled shoes, rushed up to the car, stopped short, mopped 5 brows, caught 5 breaths, unrolled 5 parchments, and began talking in turn. Greetings, salutations, welcome, good afternoon, hello. Milo nodded his head and they went on, reading from their scrolls. By order of Azaz, the unabridged King of Dictionopolis, monarch of letters, emperor of phrases, sentences, and miscellaneous figures of speech, we offer you the hospitality of our kingdom, country, nation, state, commonwealth, Rome, empire, principality, palatinate. Do all those words mean the same thing? Gasped Milo. Of course, certainly, precisely, exactly. Yes, they replied in order. Well then, said Milo, not understanding why each one said the same thing in a slightly different way. Wouldn't it be simpler to use just one? It would certainly make more sense. Nonsense, ridiculous, fantastic, absurd, bosh, they chorused again and continued. We are not interested in making sense, it's not our job, scolded the first. Besides, explained the second one word is as good as another, so why not use them all? Then you don't have to choose which one is right, advised the third. Besides, sighed the fourth, if one is right, then 10 are 10 times as right. Obviously, you don't know who we are, sneered the fifth, and they presented themselves one by one as the Duke of Definition, the Minister of Meaning, the Earl of Essence, the Count of Connotation, the Undersecretary of Understanding. Excuse me. Milo acknowledged the introduction, and as talk growled softly, the minister explained, we are the king's advisors, or in more formal terms, his cabinet. Cabinet, recited the Duke. 1. A small private room or closet, case with drawers, etc., for keeping valuables or displaying curiosities. 2. A council room for chief ministers of state. 3. A body of official advisors to the chief executive of a nation. You see, continued the minister, bowing thankfully to the Duke, Dictionopolis is the place where all the words in the world come from. They grow right here in our orchards. I didn't know words grew on trees, said Milo timidly. Where do you think they grew? Shouted the Earl irritably. A small crowd began to gather to see the little boy who didn't know that letters grew on trees. I didn't know they grew at all, admitted Milo, even more timidly. Several people shook their heads sadly. Well, money doesn't grow on trees, does it? Demanded the Count. I've heard not, said Milo. Then something must. Why not words? Exclaimed the Undersecretary triumphantly. The crowd cheered his display of logic and continued about its business. To continue, continued the minister impatiently, Once a week, by royal proclamation, the word market is held here in the great square, and people come from everywhere to buy the words they need or trade in the words they haven't used. Our job, said the Count, is to see that all the words sold are proper ones, for it wouldn't do to sell someone a word that had no meaning or didn't exist at all. For instance, if you bought a word like GHLBTSK, where would you use it? It would be difficult, thought Milo, but there were so many words that were difficult, and he knew hardly any of them. But we never chose which ones to use, explained the Earl as they walked towards the market stall. For as long as they mean what they mean to mean, we don't care if they make sense or nonsense. Innocence or magnificence, added the Count. Reticence or common sense, said the Undersecretary. It seems simple enough, said Milo, trying to be polite. Easy as falling off a log, cried the Earl, falling off a log with a loud thump. Must you be so clumsy? Shouted the Duke. All I said was, began the Earl, rubbing his head. We heard you, said the minister angrily, and you'll have to find an expression that's less dangerous. The Earl dusted himself off as the others snickered audibly. You see, cautioned the Count, you must pick your words very carefully and be sure to say just what you intend to say. And now I must leave to make preparations for the royal banquet. You'll be there, of course, said the minister. But before Milo had a chance to say anything, they were rushing off across the square as fast as they had come. Enjoy yourself in the market, shouted back the Undersecretary. Market, recited the Duke, an open space of covered buildings in which, and that was the last Milo heard as they disappeared into the crowd. I never knew words could be so I never knew words could be so confusing, Milo said as he bent down to scratch the dog's ear. Only when you use a lot to say a little, answered Talk. Milo thought this quite the wisest thing he'd heard all day. Come, he shouted, let's see the market. It looks very exciting. I am going to end it here. I might do a stream tomorrow. It depends on how tired I am. If not tomorrow, then definitely on Sunday. But I hope you have a great night, Cat. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.